One of these things is not like the other. Dun, 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 dun. And other words to the song.
Yeah, I don't know any of the other words to that song.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I am good.
What do you want to do today?
I'm going to talk about women.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm Misty.
And I'm Ike.
The next 15 minutes,
We're going to debate pop culture.
my background's in music.
My background's in film.
I know the topics beforehand.
And I don't.
We check the internet for the facts.
And ruin it with opinions.
From pop rocks in your lunchbox.
To Happy Meal toys and swatch clocks. What?
Did you know
I didn't, probably.
today?
Today is International Women's Day?
How'd you know that?
Oh, man. It's like a fog's been lifted from my vision, perhaps.
Right. And now you think that women are equal, right?
Finally. I always have.
It's also National Nap Day.
Oh.
So you can sleep through this if you want. Yep.
It's like you're giving interesting facts on women, and I'm like...
You're like... Yeah. That is what we're going to do today.
All right.
We're going to talk about the timeline of the women's suffrage movement, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
And has played a pretty big part in pop culture and in history.
How do I Google that?
Women's suffrage. I know that you know how to make women suffer. So just take the word suffrage, add age to the end of it. Yeah, there it is.
Timeline. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. It's the 19th Amendment. It's the 19th Amendment. Do-do-do-do. Oh, that was one of the worst things we've ever done on this show.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yep.
Where do you want to start at? We can go back as far as 1840 if you'd like.
Are you on crusadeforthevote.org?
I'm not. Yes, I am actually.
I knew it.
Sorry.
I'll go to history.com.
Okay.
Let's start at the beginning.
Okay. Well, in 1840, there were two women, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, and they were barred from attending the anti-slavery convention that was held in London because they were women. And that prompted them to put together and hold the first women's convention in the United States.
Okay.
But that didn't happen until 8 years later, 1848.
In Seneca Falls?
Seneca Falls, New York.
It's pretty close to where I was born.
That's right. You were born in New York.
Actually, don't know. I'm going to look up Seneca Falls, New York. This is just for my own personal amusement. So carry on, please. I want to know.
Well, it was during that convention that Elizabeth Cady Stanton wrote the Declaration of Sentiments, which basically created an agenda for women's activism that we still utilize.
It's about an hour west of Syracuse.
Mm-hmm. I know that because my flight attendant friend Gina and her husband Ken live outside of Syracuse, and I have had to Google where they lived before because they were buying some land, and I wanted to know what was going on. Anyways, can we get back to women?
Yep.
Okay.
We can always get back to women.
So a year later after that, California was the first state that gave women the right to own property.
California. Okay.
Right?
Where we're currently based out of.
Where we're currently based, yes.
For now.
Where I will be based for...
Until we move our operations to...
Until death.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We are not moving to Texas. Don't even get it in your head.
Big announcement, everybody. We're moving.
You can go visit your friends.
No, they're...
But I'm not going there.
We are moving the operation to a tax-free state soon.
Okay, I'll see you there on record days.
Speaking of taxes, when...
Good segue.
When did women start paying taxes?
Well, you had to give them the right to vote first, and you had to give them the right to, have stuff.
But is that true?
I'm not sure.
Because
one would think.
Could they be taxed without the right to vote? Because the whole thing was
taxation without representation.
Exactly. But let's just say that you were a family of means, but then you were the monarchy. What's the not the patriarchy, but of the head of the family, but you're a woman. What's that word called?
A mom.
Mom? No, you didn't have to have kids to be the head of a family.
Well, I mean, that is kind of the head of a family.
Like,
yeah, a family.
Okay.
I don't.
Let's
I'm
not
not
get
sure what you're getting at.
Head of a house, female. Word.
Head of household.
I'm driving at it. It doesn't matter.
I know you've got a word in your head. I just can't pull it out, and I'm sorry for that.
Okay. Were women taxed before they could vote? Women's Tax Resistance League. No vote, no tax. This is the Women's Tax Resistance League was from 1909 to 1918.
Uh-huh. And they fought against being taxed since they couldn't vote?
A direct action group associated with the Women's Freedom League that used tax resistance to protect against the disenfranchisement of women during the British women's suffrage movement. Dora Montefiore proposed the formation of the league in 1897, and it was formally established on actually it became a real thing, not formally like in the past.
Right.
Established on October 22nd, 1909. The league's activities peaked in the years before the First World War, but were largely deflated in 1914 by the onset of that war, when the league membership passed a resolution to temporarily suspend tax resistance.
Right.
So I think this is this is a British thing.
That is a British thing. Yep. Well, I can tell you this is something interesting, and it just shows the tenacity and the resilience of women. During the Civil War, the women put the suffrage movement to a halt and put all of their energies into the war efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Yes, they did. Are you talking about World War II?
I'm talking about the Civil War, which is why I said the Civil War when I said it.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went down a women's tax resistance in the United States wormhole.
All right.
Which is probably the only excuse for not listening to you.
I'm like, this is not looking good for a International Women's Day episode.
I'm just learning so much.
All right.
I think it's fascinating that the government thought they could just tax these women and not give them a say in it.
Well, the government has long thought that they could tax a lot of people without giving them a say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, without getting too political, women were just the first to be able to stand up against it because there were so many of us.
So at what point did they win the right to vote?
What year
Yeah.
did women earn the right to vote?
I just Googled it, and
it hasn't
I got
been that long.
a podcast called Amended. Did women earn the right to vote on August 18th, 1920?
I was going to say, I'm going to let you read that article. I like that you're learning all of this right now. It's really cool to me.
Women had limited victories for voting rights prior to the 19th Amendment. The territorial legislation in Wyoming granted voting rights to women in that area on December 10th, 1869. So first state.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there were several of those. And like a really big one was Arkansas. In 1917, Arkansas allowed women to vote in the primary elections. And that was really the first step to being able to vote in our federal elected officials. There were a lot of places before that, spotty places, cities and counties that would allow women to vote in their local elections, but it was never seen that women were supposed to be allowed to vote for a presidential election. Yeah. And the primary elections in Arkansas were the first time.
Well, there's two dates of importance for women's voting rights.
You tell me what those are, Isaac.
This is super interesting to me because the first question that came up was, because it says millions of white women already possessed voting rights when the 19th Amendment was ratified, and millions more gained that right on August 18th, 1920. And then my first question was, so not all women could vote right then?
No.
Only white women could vote right then.
Only white women and not all white women.
Right. Until August 18th.
Yeah.
But then, however, the spirit of Jim Crow legislation and a women's rights movement that often discriminated against non-white women prevented all women from gaining voting rights that day. Black women had to fight for another 45 years to gain their own right to vote through the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
Yeah.
So not all women could vote until 1965.
Yep.
That's almost
a lot of
50
people don't
years
realize
ago.
that. Yeah, people don't get that that has been within our lifetime for some people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like Jeremy.
Yeah.
A couple years older than myself. 50 years, you just said? It's coming right up on 50 years?
It will. Well, no, actually, sorry, because math.
You see, you tell me the numbers and I just spit them back out at you.
That's
I don't
right.
do the math thing. You do.
Let's get the calculator out. I'm so embarrassed that I can't do this.
It's okay.
2021 minus 1965 equals 56 years.
So yeah.
56 years.
So my mom's lifetime, your
Yes.
mom's lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
You know, people don't understand that it really wasn't that long ago.
Right. And here's the weird thing, though. If you're a woman in the 20s and you're fighting for your right to vote, but you're actively saying, give me the right, but don't give these other women the right.
Yeah.
Why aren't you like, hey, while we're at it, let's just have all the women voting? But to be discriminated against, fight for that right, and then not try and fight for everyone that's being discriminated against
Yeah.
is what's wrong with women in the first place.
And men. And men.
That was a joke. Please do not cancel me for that. Jokes are supposed to be ridiculously sarcastic.
It's true. They are.
No canceling without representation.
That's, you know what? I firmly believe in that. I think that someone should be given the chance to show that they've learned from their mistakes before they're canceled.
Well, they should also be able to prove that what they're being accused of is actually
a thing.
a thing.
True. You bring up a really good point because that kind of works across the board. Why we have fought to eliminate discrimination for certain parties, whether it be men, women, white, brown, green, whatever, and not for others. The idea of equality across the board. But back to the women.
More women.
More women. So 1920, yes, you are correct. It was actually 1919 when the 19th Amendment was passed, and then it started to go through the process of ratification. Mm-hmm. It's really weird to me because I can't ever imagine a time in my life that it would not be okay for me to vote. And to realize that my mom has seen in her lifetime a time that there were still women that couldn't vote is amazing. What do you think about Isaac?
Well, that spawned the thought, because I wasn't there, and I'm curious, and these are dangerous waters to speak uneducated about. But my question,
asking the questions are good.
Well, my question was, could black men vote before white women?
I don't believe so, but let's look it up.
So
it's a really good question, and you know what? That's what I like about this show is that we don't always have the answers. I don't know that, and it's something I should know. At this,
like when they passed that act in 1965 to let black women vote, was that the right for the black vote, male and female? Or
I do know that there. And I don't want to misquote this, but like in the Constitution, it is considered that a black man his being is worth 3/5 of a white man. That's written
right in the documents.
Right. So
doesn't make it right.
No, absolutely. So the 15th Amendment granted black men the right to vote under the law.
What year was that?
The 15th Amendment. Let's see.
Because I have the same thing. I just don't have a date on it.
Okay.
That was obviously before the 19th Amendment.
Clearly.
Right?
Clearly, yes. Let's see. Let's learn.
Well, I'll read about the 15th Amendment while you look for the date. While the 15th Amendment barred voting rights discriminating on the basis of race, it left the door open for states to determine the specific qualifications for suffrage. Southern state legislators used qualifications including literacy tests, poll taxes and other discriminatory practices to disenfranchise a majority of black voters in the decades following Reconstruction.
Okay.
As a result, white-dominated state legislators consolidated control and effectively reestablished the black codes in the form of so-called Jim Crow laws, a system of segregation that would remain in place for nearly a century.
Okay, so this is super interesting because a lot of this actually started with the 13th Amendment and then into the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, approved by Congress in 1866 and ratified in 68, granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the U.S., including former slaves, and guaranteed equal protection of the laws to all citizens. So 1870, Congress passed the last of three so-called Reconstruction Amendments, which the 15th Amendment was part of, stated that voting rights could not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So it was 1870. Black men were given, I'm assuming, the right to vote at that point.
On a federal level, but then it could get controlled on the state level by Jim Crow
this
laws.
says no. It says could not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. I mean, clearly that's not how things have always worked out because there are many, many ways around that with voter suppression and et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. So the 15th Amendment barred voting rights discrimination on the basis of race. It left the door open for states to determine the specific qualifications for suffrage. I don't know what that means. What is suffrage as a whole considered?
I mean, is it another word for voting? The right to vote in political elections. Suffrage definition.
So it left the door open for states to determine specific qualifications.
Right. That's the 15th Amendment that I was reading about.
Right.
Yeah. So even though it got passed on the federal level, the southern states were like, not in my town. But technically, the question we were asking was, could black men vote before white women?
And the answer is
yes.
yes.
In 1965, then black women also got the right to vote.
Right.
Weird.
So this has been
so weird. There's
been
not
a journey.
It's not a logical step to any of it.
There's not.
White men, white women, black women, and then where's everybody else fall into it? Like where? Like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting to think that. No, I'm not even going to go down that road.
Suffrage timeline. Let's see what happens if we just put suffrage timeline and see about like all peoples. Peoples?
Peoples? Yes, peoples. We're all peoples.
This goes to the American
It's weird
Bar
to me that it was
Association.
1870 when this happened and that the 50s and 60s, the civil rights movement, it took that long for the civil rights movement. It's just, it's crazy to me. It's crazy.
And then you think, okay, so before everything was like fully ratified federally in 65, they had the Southern Jim Crow laws. Right. How long, like, what are we still doing legislatively to suppress the vote for different peoples?
Oh, we found out.
In
this election,
and
we're
still finding out. Yeah.
It's slowly like coming to light, all of the voter suppression and redistricting and gerrymandering and, all of that. It's pretty incredible what people will do to take the right away from someone they deem less than them to vote. Whether that be men or women.
That's right. If you want to follow along at home and check out a really awesome timeline, you can go to the American Bar, so AmericanBar.org, or just search suffrage timeline, and it'll give you the breakdown for all people groups, male and female.
Cool.
In a scrolling timeline and the events that happened year by year from 1848, which is that first women's rights convention that you talked about, all the way to 1920. That should go further than that.
Yes.
But it doesn't.
But okay, if you stop in 1920 when the 19th Amendment was passed, you can go to history.com, and I have a really cool article, When Did African Americans Actually Get the Right to Vote? And it breaks it down, men and women, along with white women. and white men. It gives you the whole, it doesn't do it in timeline, but it does it in story, which is even more, you know, you get all the details. I'm going to read this a whole lot more when we get off of this. Off of this episode, because it's super interesting.
Well, we went long. There's a lot.
Heck yeah, we did.
There's a lot to learn.
There's a lot to unpack there.
And now we need a disclaimer.
What's our disclaimer?
I just think everybody should know that, like, we're doing the best to educate ourselves live on camera and learn what we can about some difficult topics. They're not necessarily difficult, but like maybe we should have already been educated about this, but we're doing our best to learn it now. So if we got something wrong in this episode or we offended anybody, we're just doing our best. So
we're trying to learn.
We're trying to help other people learn as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're on the right side of history on this one, and we're just trying to spread knowledge and empowerment to everybody of all.
Well, and it's interesting too how, you know, this started out International Women's Day, and I was like, oh, let's figure out, you know, the timeline of when women got to vote. And when you start to learn about one thing, it's really interesting how you can also learn about all kinds of other stuff that you weren't expecting.
Oh, 100%. And the intention was never to take it away from this episode being all about women. It was just, that was the way my curiosity goes.
And to me, it was super interesting. And like I said, I have this whole article, and when I go home tonight, I'm going to open my computer and read more of it because it's real cool. And it has spurred my curiosity.
What kind of curiosity did it spur for you guys? Leave us a comment and tell us some stuff that you would like to know. Obviously, we could do another 20 minutes on this topic anytime you want, and we're open to a dialogue. We'd love to talk to you guys about what you think. So
we like to do fun things and goofy things, but we also like to do things that are a little bit more serious, that you learn some stuff.
We're a science, technology, and information channel. And
are we a STEM podcast?
Ooh. I don't know what the engineering and mechanics.
Yeah.
Did I just really
mathematics? I thought it was science.
Maybe there's two M's: mathematics and mechanics.
I don't.
ST.
You know what? We'll make it that.
Yes. It's
I deem it so.
And so it shall be.
So it shall be.
Maybe it's like a whammy.
It is.
Or an EGOT. Or a
WeGot.
WeGot. That's what I was going for.
I'm really glad that you didn't participate in National Nap Day and nap through that episode.
It's happening right now.
Congratulations.
That's why we got to go.
All right. Bye.